Hey guys, what is up? This is Matthew D. Once again, welcome back to another movie review, aka After I Saw. This time is going to be on Twisters. Now, Twisters follows a new cast of characters, which this is I'm not sure whether to call this a sequel or a reboot, because this is technically similar to the original 1996 Twister, of course, that this sort of being a follow-up to that. We follow a young girl, and after going through past events 5 years ago, she meets up with an old friend and a new friend and a brand new crew as they go out and set off to go and hunt for twisters and experimenting ways of trying to get rid of them. Or, well, it's very similar to the storyline to the first movie, because with that first movie, you pretty much know exactly what you expected. Like, you didn't really care for all this science stuff. You just wanted a big disaster to happen, and that's exactly what you got with the first movie as it became a cult classic. I watched it for the first time yesterday. I think it's a good movie, but the characters, despite it having good actors, I thought were generic. Same with the storyline. Despite the fact that I thought those aspects were dull, I did think that the movie was pretty entertaining. When it came to the whole disaster aspect, it pretty much built a brand new genre of disaster-related films. You got the Roland Emmerich films that come out once in a while, and of course you got other big-name disaster-related films like Dante's Peak and whatnot. And, the closest thing we did have to a movie similar to this was actually 10 years ago, when a movie called Into the Storm came out. Does anybody even remember that movie? Like, I can't believe I actually remember that, because after watching that movie, I completely forgot what happened at this film. I haven't heard anyone else talk about that movie after, because I don't think many people remember. This, I didn't really have a whole lot of hope for because of that movie, because that film just didn't really do a whole lot. But this movie, shockingly, I had quite a bit of a blast with. And that's saying something, because I liked Twister. I didn't love it. I didn't love this movie either. I just had a lot of fun watching it. For one thing, I thought the pacing was actually really good. Mainly just due to the fact that it had a really, really intense opening scene. And when it comes to the whole stuff related to the twisters, that's exactly what you expect. And honestly, I feel like this, for some reason, managed to be far more ridiculous than the first film, because I felt like the first one was a bit more serious when it came to, the aspects of the tornadoes. But this time around, I feel like because they're a lot bigger, they can manage to get away with a lot more. And yeah, it is generally fun. And I'm gonna be honest, even though I didn't really care a whole lot for the characters in the first movie, I actually found myself generally surprised with liking some of the characters in here. They're not memorable or anything like that, but honestly, I did like them. I think it has a really strong cast, just like in the first movie, despite the fact that the first movie had some pretty weak characters. Some of them I enjoyed watching here. I mean, it does have elements of humor that I didn't really feel like worked a whole lot. But, the movie is ridiculous, so we were going to tend to laugh with the movie anyway. And that's the thing, when it comes to these aspects, they don't feel entirely cheesy, and it just, even the effects, I thought for the most part, they were pretty convincing despite being CG. Now, throughout a lot of the times, it is gonna vaguely remind you of that original film. It does tend to feel like it's mostly the same thing, which is why I feel like it's a bit more of a reboot rather than a sequel. But it's not all shot for shot, because there were aspects of the characters in the first movie that were very generic. But right here, I feel like some of the aspects that the characters have do generally work for the most part. It is pretty much kind of a much more modernized version of Twister, just due to the fact that it's in a much more modern setting. But it's not like filled with like pop culture references or anything like that to make it feel more modern. The most modern thing it does is this one guy has a YouTube channel and it's just doing all this just for his YouTube channel. So yeah, that's the closest thing that it does to make it feel more modern. There's also one aspect involving a movie theater which kind of confused me, just due to the fact that it's a very old movie theater. Do we still have movie theaters like this? So I'm not really sure exactly what time this entire thing is taking place in, but besides all that, the movie I generally had a blast watching. It's 2 hours of pure madness when it comes to the tornadoes, but it generally does feel a bit convincing, and it does have heart to it when it comes to some of the moments with the characters that aren't tearjerkers, but they're comforting. Comforting moments that I feel like definitely give characters more depth, and definitely does tend to try making these characters somewhat more than two-dimensional. And in the end, guys, I had a blast with Twisters. I didn't expect a whole lot from it. I went in with it as low expectation as possible because this could have been an absolute disaster. And I'm not saying that because this is a disaster-related film. I mean a disaster in a bad way, but it managed to be a good disaster film that's actually worth a viewing. Instead of laughing at it, a lot of the times I tend that we laugh with it. If you're a fan of the first film, I definitely recommend giving this a watch. But of course, it might feel a little bit too similar to that original film. I kind of enjoyed this a bit more than the original movie. I'm not sure if that's going to be an unpopular opinion, but hey, I watched that movie for the first time. Like, I've only seen like bits and pieces of it, but because this was coming out, I had to watch it. But I had to watch the full thing, and it's good, but it's just going to depend. All I can say is that this is a film I had low expectations for. I didn't expect it to be all that good, but by the end, it turned out to be way better than I thought it would be. What a twist. It's good popcorn fun, and generally something that I feel like most audiences could tend to enjoy. I doubt it's going to break any box office records, but we'll see what happens when it comes to, if people actually do still tend to care about this. I mean, Moonfall was a huge box office disaster, but that movie wasn't even all that good to begin with, so who knows. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys later. Word out.